Hello, good morning. I am Ashok Chauhan. I welcome all of you to today's guest lecture on economics of war and wars of economies. I welcome all of you on the behalf of the Department of Economics, Kurukshetra University, Kurukshetra. So today's guest speaker will be Advocate Rajesh Tyagi. Advocate Rajesh Tyagi is a lawyer at Supreme Court, New Delhi. I welcome you, sir. He has been working.
Thank you very much.
He has been working tirelessly for the cause of working class. He has analyzed all the revolutions and struggles of labor class throughout the history, and continuously he keeps on analyzing all the events taking place in the economy and in the society. He has been able to influence many other law practitioners to fight the cases of industrial labor. I would also like to say that he has been a staunch critic of the pseudo leftists. But that is not important. He is having good command on economics, philosophy, Marxian philosophy, polity, and in many social sciences. So I welcome you, sir. You have taken a lot of trouble and you have accepted our invitation out of your busy schedule. So I welcome you, sir. But before you start your lecture, I would like to speak something about my department so that it comes on the record on the Facebook and YouTube. Sir, this department was established in 1961. This is the oldest department of the Kurukshetra University, Kurukshetra, and it has many credits to its account. It has produced many eminent economists, and many of them have become vice chancellors. It was the founding chairman of the department was Dr. Vikas Mishra. He also became vice chancellor later on. And other names in this list are Dr. A. N. Nalagundan, Dr. R. P. Huda, Dr. Mahasingh, and more recently, Dr. R. K. Mittal, who has been vice chancellor of three universities, and currently he is vice chancellor of CBLU Bhiwani, and Dr. M. M. Goyal, who is vice chancellor of StarX University. And beside this, many other persons associated, other economists associated with our department, they have reached to heights like to eminent positions, like Professor Surinder Kumar has been the director of the Giri Institute of Development Studies at Lucknow, a premier research institute in social sciences. And Professor V. N. Atri, he became chair in the ocean studies at Indian Ocean Rim Association, which is an organization of the 20 Indian Ocean Rim Association countries. Professor Alan Daya, who became PVC and Vice Chancellor of Guru Jambeshwar University, Hisar. And beside this, many great economists, famous eminent economists like Professor J.D. Verma, Dr. Ashok Mathur in JNU, Dr. H.L. Ahuja. Every student knows about his book. And Professor Ram Singh in the Delhi University now currently working. Professor Surinder Kumar, who is heading Delhi University, Professor Paramjit Singh, and in earlier times, Dr. N.C. Kakwani, who later on worked in the United Nations Development Program, and with his research, the United Nations has to change its earlier strategy and has to become more people oriented. And beside this, uh, Professor Prakash Chandra, who became head in the National University of the Singapore, and many IES officers, to name a few, Grim Kaushal, and many IPS officers, uh, IPS Rakesh Arya is also from our department, and many diplomats in Thailand. Dr. Precha Kansia was also from our department, and Dr. I. Potombi Singh is also a diplomat from our department. Besides this, uh, uh, IRS Govind Singhal, Shivali Malhotra, Rajendra Jindal, and in uh, this famous Competition Commission of India, Dr. Geeta Gori was also from our department. And today, uh, the students who are sitting here, so they are young students, sir. So you have to be little bit, you can say, teach basics to them. You have to be and slow also. So that is my request. Because students from MA Economics previous and MA Business Economics previous and MA final in the fourth semester, Business Economics fourth semester, they are sitting here. And beside this, some very, you can say, uh, bubbling, uh, bubbling with energy, such scholars, research scholars. So around 15 to 20 research scholars are eager to listen to you. They are waiting that what is the new today. So before you start, sir, so I'll take 1 or 2 minutes to talk about the topic also. The topic is the economics of wars and war of economies. So the topic itself suggests that we want to know that who is benefited from the wars. So which groups are benefited from this? And war of economies means why economies enter into wars with each other, why the nation states they enter into war, what is the relation. These are the prominent questions before us, that what is the relation between the this capitalistic system, market mechanism, democracies, and wars. See, because my common sense says that the capitalism wants that companies should become bigger and bigger, and they want to have their markets all over the world. So when companies they want to have markets in other countries, then why they want that there should be war? Because the wars they disrupt the economies, and the companies who have invested money in other countries, why they engage into war? Because that will go against their interests. And why the capitalistic system, you can say, promotes the war? Why the trade and war both go hand in hand? So these are the questions. um, then you can say we have seen that the expenditure on the defense expenditure, not only in India, but all over the world, it is increasing tremendously in the recent times. So if I see some of the diagrams, I find that USA is at number one, then China, then Saudi Arabia, and India is at number three. So 5 years back, India was at number seven, but now India has come on number three. And if you see in terms of the, you can say, percentage of GDP, then also you can say that is increasing. So, percentage of GDP may look small, say it may look like 2.6% or 2.7%. But if you see as a percentage of the union budget, then it is very large. Because if I see recently in 2021, it has been 14.05%. and before that it has been 16.86%. Means 16.86% of the union budget was spent only on the defense. In 1819 also it was 17.43%, and in 1718 also it was 17.73% in case of India. In other countries, the percentage may be small, but size is very big, particularly in case of USA. It is hopping at more than 648.8 US billion dollars. So this is surprising, sir, because generally we hear that if this much money is spent on combating the climate change, so this problem can be solved in 2 3 years. Means 1 year's defense expenditure can solve the climate change problem. Uh, and economists have estimated it, but no country is thinking about, you can say, these things. So when the money is spent on the defense, on the weapons, on the you can say for the preparation of war. So you see that first the countries are spending money on buying the weapons, and then they spend money on satellites to watch whether other can attack on them. Means they want to have better and better surveillance, and they're spending lakhs of crores of rupees on the satellites, which will keep on watching that what other countries are doing and what their missiles can do with them. So when so much money is spent on this wasteful expenditure, how the money will be left for the to solve the problem of the climate change, environmental degradation, terrorism, poverty, inequality, pandemics, you can see, diseases, illiteracy, energy, and water problems, various kind of water conflicts. Why the nation states do not cooperate to solve these problems, and why they, you can say, spend money on the weapons? So that is the question. So I have raised so many questions. So I think that is enough, and I expect that students who have joined, so I'll request them that they should prefer YouTube, and if it doesn't work, then they can go to Facebook. It would be better that the students put some comment in the YouTube comment box, so that I come to know that who has joined. So that will be helpful for me for raising the questions. So I welcome you again, sir. So I have nothing to offer you, so I simply clap for you. Okay, welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And in fact, you have made me more nervous than before by speaking so high about me. I'm a small time lawyer, and whatever I know about economics, that is too small and too meager in face of the reality that I'm trying to speak to masters in economics. Uh, and this makes me more nervous when you say that I know economics. In fact, I know nothing, and the more I try to know economics, the more I'm convinced that I know nothing about economics. So I will try to throw light upon certain aspects of the matter. Your topic you had suggested is, I think, in itself is a very good and very relevant topic for the moment, because all over the world we can see that innumerable innumerable, in the sense I'm saying that we cannot count upon them at the moment, innumerable theaters of war are coming up, and every day a new theater of war is emerging. We don't know how many countries are at loggerheads with each other, how many countries are in preparation of war, where war is going to start and where war is going to pick up. In Middle East, there is a long drawn theater, and in Middle East also, if we talk about Middle East, we don't know which country is standing where, and where a new war is going to pop up. I'm talking of Middle East. And apart from Middle East, in Latin America, in Central Asia, in Eurasia, in Africa, everywhere a new theater is coming up time and again. So we are living in an age, in an era where wars have become a new normal, and wars have become permanent. Since US attack on Iraq, there has been no respite in wars. War, war and war, everywhere a war. So we are already in the season of wars, one war after the other, one war besides the other, and all these wars, they are presenting a scenario where now it seems to us that capitalism has already started to live by war. All industry is now oriented to war, either directly or indirectly. War industry is taking to the center stage of industrial production also. The heaviest investments of finance capital have been made in war sectors. I am not talking war industry, but in war sectors. That means war industry or allied sectors to it. And this is the scenario which is coming up, and a matter of concern. I would not cite many statistics. Statistics all students and everyone can get from the net. These days we are living in an age of information. So all statistics you can get from the net, but very I would say statistics of concern, those which are coming up and which arouse a concern among us all. I would cite very brief statistics at present, and I am having this data of mid 2021. Latest data is not available on that. So mid 2021, the whole military expenditure that has gone up to 2 trillion US dollars. 2 trillion US dollars. That is huge expenditure as compared to even to 2019. 2 trillion US dollar means a march of expenditure, an increase of expenditure over and above $1,981 billion as compared to 2019. So it's a huge increase and a huge expenditure as a whole. At a time, this expenditure has been made at a time, and this increase has occurred at a time when there was pandemic in the world, and all governments were telling us, all bourgeois governments were telling us that they don't have sufficient resources to support even education, to keep with public health, and even feeding of their citizens. At a time when pandemic was there and the most essential services, they were being subjected to austerity. At that time, this expenditure is not only made but is skyrocketed, and it has touched 2 trillion US dollars. It's a matter of big concern, great concern in our world, where billions and billions are suffering malnutrition, they are suffering under poverty, they are suffering under illiteracy, diseases. People are not getting proper resources, access to health. Healthcare is not there for majority of the population in entire world. And I'm not talking of Bangladesh or Pakistan or Sri Lanka or India. I'm talking of the most advanced countries in the world. 1/3 of the US population is not having proper health care. So in this world, a 2 trillion US dollar expenditure is being made on military, not as a whole. And most of the part, this expenditure is official expenditure that is reflected in budgets. Non-budgetary allocations are there, and then secret expenditure of all governments on military and paramilitary operations, stealth operations, proxy wars, which is never accounted for. That is even greater than this. So the total expenditure would come into several trillion dollars, several trillion US dollars. Most of the expenditure that is made on military operations, military and paramilitary operations, they are not accounted for. This is something which only national states know. This is their secret. And as Professor Chauhan has put it up, this expenditure, out of this expenditure, 91% is being made only by US and China. US and China. I'm sorry. This is 62% expenditure by US, China, India, Russia and UK. These 5 countries are making 62% of this expenditure, and it is huge. If
That voice is less. Please raise volume if possible.
okay, okay, I think now it is sufficiently raised. Is it good now? Volume.
At my end, it's okay, but some students are complaining.
Okay, I think now it should be fine. It should be fine now. So 5 countries put together, US, China, India, Russia, UK, they are making 62% of this expenditure of 2 trillion US dollars. 62% is being made by 5 countries. World GDP has shrunk during this COVID period, during this year of 2022-21. It has already shrunk 4.4%. And despite this, there is a huge increase of around 2.7% in military expenditure in total in this year. So the total increase, that would be far higher than this, because already world economy has shrunk and military expenditure has increased. I would not narrate so many, I would not give so many statistics, only broad statistics I am giving. And NATO countries have put a target in their budget, is given a target that this minimum you will have to spend for military expenditure in the NATO alliance. And you can see that not only these 5 countries which are contributing to 62% of total budget, total expenditure, military expenditure, but other countries, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and even poor African countries, Chad, Mali, Nigeria, Uganda, their expenditure on military is continuously increasing for last many years. India, as Professor Chauhan has already told you, India is hello, sorry, I was delinked. So India among them is at number 3, and given the economy of India, the state of economy of India, the debt ridden economy, totally debt ridden economy, a failed state, this expenditure is a huge expenditure. Third largest importer of arms is India, and India is a country in South Asia which is marred by disease, illiteracy, poverty and all that. So not only the countries like US, China, Japan or South Korea or the advanced countries of Western Europe, the NATO countries are there. But the poorest of the poor countries like India and Chad, you see, so they are being forced to take to uh, they are being forced to take to arms, to import of arms, to arms production and all that. So, and if we come to non-budget allocations, the secret expenditure, that cannot be calculated even. Nobody knows about it. All countries, they are keeping a huge amount in their hands for this sort of military expenditure, and this is being done, and the whole world knows. Even UN recognizes this sort of military expenditure which nation states are making secretly. If we talk of nuclear warheads, the small statistics I would give, and then I would come to the main topic. So, nuclear warheads in entire world at this time, despite all efforts being put by the movements, the disarmament movements, 13,150 warheads survive on record. Whatever is is in addition to this and besides this, that we don't know, and there must be huge cakes in addition to this 13,150 warheads. This is mid 2021, and as I said, the 91% of this is being retained by US and Russia. US and Russia combined, they are retaining 91% of this 13,150 warheads, nuclear warheads. More than 4,000 each country is retaining, US and Russia both. 9,500 warheads are in operation, they are active warheads, and 2,000 plus are on red alert. They can be fired at any moment. On a notice of few minutes, they can be fired. And true number is a closely held national secret which nobody knows, only the national governments know. Now, in the backdrop of this scenario, where so many warheads are being accumulated, so much expenditure is being made, and in the entire world, every day new theater of war is coming up. We are discussing a very relevant topic. Professor Chauhan, I would thank Professor Chauhan that he has selected this topic and he has given me this great opportunity to address young students and to talk to teachers also on this topic. The topic is economics of wars and wars of economies. So, I would say that the economics of wars, in a sense, is not a separate economy. This economics of war is the economics of capitalism. The economics of capitalism is the economics of war, because war is capitalism and capitalism is war. And this emanates from the war of economies, the clash of economies. The clash of economies that gives rise to economics of wars. And how this takes place, we have to discuss this and we have to understand it. We are living, dear friends, in the age of imperialism. Lenin has described the age of imperialism as the very ripe and mature age of capitalism. Overripe, I would say overripe capitalism is imperialism. And we are living much ahead of Lenin, a century after Lenin, and we can say that we are living not in the over-ripened age of capitalism, but an over-ripened age of imperialism also. Imperialism that has taken place, that has emerged around 1900, 1901. I am talking of modern imperialism, the imperialism based on financial capitalism. So, 1900, 1901 is its birth year, and a whole century is gone, and I would say that a quarter century, a new century that has started, and a quarter of it has already passed. So it is approximately 120 years since this imperialism was born, the financial capitalism that triggered this new age of imperialism. If we say that the first emanates out of the later, so that would be a correct proposition, that this economics of war, the economics of capitalism, this is coming out of, in our times it is coming out of war of economies. The national economies, as the word economy stands divided into, these national economies are at loggerheads with each other. They are promoting themselves, they are striving to survive for themselves at the cost of each other. We are living in an imperialist world, a world that is divided into not only into national states that in turn are rooted into private property, but also a world whose economy is being controlled by huge monopolies, the MNCs, the TNCs, and the big trusts with the collaborations, the collectives of these monopolies. The old age of competitive capitalism, of which many intellectuals speak even today, they speak of that even today. When they glorify capitalism, when they talk about capitalism, they say that capitalism has introduced a sort of competition, and in that competition, it is securing the best of humanity. People are competing with each other in market, and the best of their capabilities, they are coming out, and so on. So that the capitalism they are talking about, that is nowhere now, or you can say that is gone on fringes, that is gone on margins. The capitalism which we are facing today is altogether different. There is no competition in this capitalism between individual capitalists. Long back, a century or even more than that, before, this competition between individual capitalists, this was completely substituted by competition between monopolies, between corporates. Corporates have emerged, and the competition, the individual competition that had stimulated the markets, that had stimulated the growth under capitalism, that has altogether vanished. It is not that capitalism has not given anything to the world. The world we exist in, and the world that stands before us, this is evolved under capitalism. Capitalism has given a lot to the world, but the age, the era in which capitalism has given this lot to the world, and this could have given, capitalism could have given a lot to the world, that is now bygone age. That is gone forever, a century before, even more than a century before, and never to return. The capitalism as it stands today, it is not stimulating any growth. Rather, it is living by wars, bloodshed, all sort of loot, plunder, and killing of masses. The last century has been the century of two world wars, a huge destruction, and besides that, innumerable small regional wars, destruction in which has far superseded the destruction of two world wars put together. So, the last century, the century of ripened, over ripened capitalism, the century of imperialism, has been the century of violence, bloodshed, and wars. That is what capitalism could give to humanity in the last century. Whatever it could have given in 18th century, 19th century, so that is story of the past. It has steamed out during the last century as it entered into a new phase, the phase of financial capitalism. It was already steamed out. It was already steamed out when it was forced to step outside of its metro centers, from the imperialist countries, from the capitalist Europe to colonies. In colonies, as it stepped into colonies, it had acquired a totally reactionary character. Though on its sides, definitely it has civilized colonies also. It is given its products to colonies also, but that was without any will and out of compulsion. Like Britishers, when Britishers introduced railway or postal services in India, that was not aimed at uh, any welfare of Indian masses or welfare of the colony, but to intensify the loot and plunder of this colony and to take away whatever was being produced in the colonies to the metro centers, to connect them to the markets. So, in that, capitalism has still played a progressive role, as Karl Marx has pointed out. Karl Marx has said that colonialism has played a positive role, though without its will, without any will, and with the motive to loot the resources of colonies. But still it could have produced something, still it could have given something. Today's capitalism, as it stands before us since 1900, 1901, so it is turned into imperialism, modern imperialism, we would say, in contrast to old imperialism, colonialism. The modern imperialism that is based upon export of finance, export of financial capital, and in our times it is transforming itself into export of productive capital, that is coming to center stage of the world. So, this export of capital, a small class, handful of people who are engaged in this export of capital, a sort of financial autarky that has come up, and it is controlling the world. A handful of people, they have come to control the world. They are sitting over the pyramid of prosperity, and majority of the world that is reeling under life conditions where neck breaking toil is there, poverty is there, illiteracy is there, diseases are there. Entire South Asia, Africa, Latin America, Central Asia, and large swathes of lands, territories. So, they are being deprived of everything. People are deprived of everything. Now, to understand this imperialism, what is imperialism? And as Professor Chauhan has put a very relevant question, that how the ground for wars is prepared. I would answer that. How this ground for wars is prepared. But before that, we must understand what imperialism is. So, in marking and in understanding and characterizing imperialism, I would like to say two things. This imperialism in our times, when we speak of imperialism politically, it is a system of national states. It's a collage of national states. Our earth is divided into nation states, and the gangs of capitalists are ruling over them. So, this whole structure of nation states, it comprises imperialism speaking politically. When you come to economics, imperialism means the domination of big corporations and their alliances, trusts, fighting each other. And similarly, these national states, rival national states, fighting with each other. Private property and the system of national states, that is the essence of capitalism. Nation state is rooted in private property and it protects private property. It protects the relations based on private property, the relations emanating out of it. So, it is protector of private property and it is rooted in private property. In this backdrop, two contradictions are prime contradictions in our times. Whole edifice of imperialism that rests upon these two contradictions. These two contradictions are globally integrating economic life on the one hand, and globally integrating economic life means all the productive forces, the forces of economy, you can say capital, labor, science, technology, and all the productive forces combined together. So, this economic life is integrating itself on a global scale. There is a huge push and no power on earth can now stop this. So, this is globalization of economic life. This globalization of economic life is taking place not because of nation states, but despite all the hindrances that they are presenting to this globalization, to this global integration. So, this economic life of mankind is integrating on a global scale. This is first feature. I am talking of two contradictions, prime contradictions of our time. This is the first feature. This integration which we are talking of, this is impetus continuously being given to economic life by the productive forces. These productive forces, they want to expand all over the globe. They want to scale over every barricade that comes in their way, and definitely as we look back at the human history, we find that no barricading can prevent this historic march of productive forces, this onward march of productive forces. It can be scuttled for the moment, but it cannot be prevented. Ultimately, these productive forces are able to throw off the yoke of the strongest production relations as they march on. So, these productive forces, they are striving to expand on a global scale. Technology wants to expand on a global scale, but these nation states, they are thwarting it. America is banning Huawei production. China is banning American producers. Many sorts of this barricading, this is being done by nation states. All nation states by the anti dumping duties, the anti outsourcing laws, through their legal regimes, through their illegal uh, activities. They are trying to stop and thwart this onward march of productive forces. But these productive forces, there is a huge striving of these productive forces to expand on global scale and to integrate this economic life consequently on a global scale. So, this is first thing out of the two contradictions. This is the first contradiction which is coming between the ossified national state and the productive forces, the forces that are proliferating and that are expanding every moment, every second. There is a new expansion, every second a new productive force is coming up. So, this huge expansion, this proliferation of economic life and with it of the productive forces, this is putting up a challenge to nation states, to national frontiers, to national boundaries, and the nation states are trying to arrest these productive forces inside their own narrow confines, their own national frontiers. They are trying to control them, and not only control them, they are trying to destroy them also. I will come to that discussing the historic wars, how they destroy them. So, the destruction on a massive scale, destruction of productive forces on a massive scale to control them, to curb them, to keep them under control and to prevent them from exploding the old shells of nation states inside which they are being kept arrested. So, the only way these nation states know is to kill these production forces, these productive forces. The effort that they could have made to expand their capacity to accommodate these productive forces, that they have already done, that they have all nation states through structuring and restructuring of their legal regimes, of their economic spaces. They have already done that in the last century, in later half of the last century after World War II. All states had been doing that, all nation states had been doing that at their own and in collaboration with each other. They were trying to reconcile. There was a huge thrust to reconcile this contradiction between emerging economic life on a global scale and the narrow confines of nation state. Bretton Woods Agreement, a global agreement, was made for this purpose only after World War II, so that these nation states should not destroy each other, they should not destroy the productive forces, and they should not, their brainless and mindless, their blind striving to arrest these productive forces and to keep the economic life within their own confines, to fight for control over the productive forces out of the huge world pool. So, that should not destroy the nation states and fight with each other. With that motive, with that purpose, these global agreements have been made. First of all, Bretton Woods Agreement was made, but that Bretton Woods Agreement had fallen. By 1968, you know, Bretton Woods Agreement had started to fall, and if I correctly remember, it was 1971 when America had started to say that the dollar backing The gold backing behind dollar is being withdrawn, and by 1973 it was completely withdrawn, and all economies, all currencies were then floating against each other. So by 1973 that had broken down, and from that point onwards that agreement was broken down, and with this new phase of breakdown of world capitalism had started since 1973. Then the concern before these nation states was that there must be some sort of regime, legal and economic regime, which must attempt to reconcile the contradiction between nation states and the expanding, the globally integrating economic life, so that the contradiction between the nation states to still march over each other, that ultimately generates war between them, among them, that must be kept under control. So with this, Dunkel proposals were introduced, then GATT agreements have come, General Agreement on Trade and Tariff has come, then an embodiment of it has come in the form of WTO, World Trade Organization. So there is relentless effort on the part of nation states to somehow evade the war and to reconcile this contradiction between nation states and the expanding economic life. Expanding economic life means the productive forces are rebelling. They are rebelling against the narrow confines of nation states, and they are not rebelling today. The colonialism, the old colonialism, was the net result of this rebellion. With the invention of steam engine, England, productive forces in England, they have come to a saturation point very soon, as power loom had started in England, and England started created its colonies. So huge chunks of raw material were available, power loom was available, and a very young labor class was available. So very soon this production of England, this which was stimulated by this power loom, so it started to hit the walls of the narrow confines of British nation state, and Britain had to go in search of new colonies for consumption of its new markets, for consumption of its production. And as it traversed in search of these new markets, as it colonized the more parts of the world, so its capitalist class that had come to power with such fanfare and promises of democracy, of brotherhood, of fraternity, that became savage. In colonies, they were acting like savages. The loot and plunder, they started in colonies like India, Africa, South Africa. So that was, in essence, in its inherent nature, it was barbaric. So this way, this contradiction between nation state, the narrow confines of nation state, which represents the production relations. In the mode of production, nation state is chief representative of production relations. Nation state, its legal regime, its economic regime, that represents the production relations. So it became the jailer for these productive forces. Productive forces wanted to expand, and the nation state, it was trying to control them. It was trying to uh, confine them within its own confines. So, at one stage, at the stage of colonialism, when these productive forces started to rebel against these uh, advanced capitalist countries like Britain, so the British state had become facilitator for expansion of these productive forces to other parts of the world. Capitalism had gone to the world in the form of initial colonization. Colonies were made, and the capitalist forces started to expand over the colonies. But that stage has ended very soon. Ultimately, a point of saturation has arrived there also, and again the same problem was being faced. At the advent of the last century, 1900 and 1901, imperialism was changing its face. It was entering into a new phase where commodity production that was going on periphery, and the financial capitalism that was capturing the center stage. The financial magnates, they had come to center stage of whole economy, and the whole face of capitalism started to change with this. Capitalism had become, by 1900 1901, capitalism had become the dominant mode of production. Dominant mode of production, not in the sense that it was including majority of the population, but in the sense that the largest production in the world, and chiefly the industrial production, was connected to the finance capital, and that was subjected by finance capital to itself. Finance capital was controlling major part of the production. So, with the advent of this financial capitalism, this question was posed in a new perspective. Question of resolution of contradiction between the old ossified national state and the expanding productive forces on a global scale. And as I told you, that this contradiction, first of all, this contradiction resulted into small wars, regional wars, and then into a wholesome, the First World War. First World War was the first large instance of this clash between expanding economic life and the narrow confines of nation state. It was, First World War, we can say it was a massive rebellion, a worldwide rebellion of productive forces against the old production relations, against the outdated production relations. And what represented these outmoded production relations? The nation state. What represented the new rebellious productive forces? The technique, the technology, developing technology, the technique, the labor, the capital. These were productive forces. So, these productive forces, since then they have continued to expand, to integrate with each other on a global scale. They have made a whole network since then on global scale, and they have expanded to a large extent, but alongside it, the nation state has played its part. Nation state has continuously attempted to curb the onward march of these productive forces, and in that it has produced innumerable wars, wars after wars, and two huge world wars, World War I and World War II. World War I, while talking about World War I, as I said, was the first instance of this huge clash. But this huge clash of nation states, clash of these productive forces with production relations, this could not, in any sense of the word, it could not subside. It could not put an end to these contradictions. Rather, it has more stimulated them. It has more and more provided them new grounds for new clash. And we see that after World War I, immediately as World War I had ended, new ground for World War II was being prepared. Once again, the same forces were coming at head-on clash with each other. So, from here, a new question, as Professor Ashok Chauhanji has put this question as a central question to this discussion, that how this ground is prepared, how this new ground is prepared once these nation states, or you can say a particular mode of production or the productive production relations, they achieve an equilibrium. They come to some terms, like they had come to some terms not only after World War I, but even before World War I. They had come to certain terms. There were treaties, there were talks among imperialist powers, and they had entered into innumerable treaties among themselves. Why these treaties are not working, and why a drive towards war is so essential, why it is so indispensable, why it is why we are seeing that neither the League of Nations nor the United Nations after that is able to stop the wars. Karl Kautsky was leader of Second Socialist International, Second International. He has argued, he said that it is before First World War. When First World War was going to start, 1914, before that, 2 years before that, he was arguing, Karl Kautsky was arguing, Karl Kautsky said that we have entered into an age, into an era where now there will be no wars. He said that he gave many reasons for that. Karl Kautsky said that all powers know that wars will bring a huge destruction, massive destruction of productive forces. So why they would go for war? He said that we are in an era where imperialist powers can sit together and they can settle the things among themselves peacefully, and they can evade the war. And lastly, he said that if not forever, then for a long time to come, they can evade the war, and they are at it, and there would be no war. Lenin contradicted it in his seminal work. Lenin said that no, Karl Kautsky is wrong. The more these powers go for a settlement, the more these powers go for a compromise among themselves. The moment when they are compromising, the moment when they are entering into settlements, the old equilibrium is being disturbed by blind forces of the history. This old equilibrium is being disturbed by development of economies. What is this development of economy? One aspect of this development of economy, of economic life, was highlighted by Karl Marx. Karl Marx said, while analyzing capitalism, Karl Marx said that development of capitalism is uneven in nature. This unevenness of capitalism, Karl Marx said, underscored, and we can see, even in today's world, we can see that the northern hemisphere of the world is more developed as compared to southern hemisphere. Europe is more developed as compared to Asia. In Europe also, eastern part is less developed as compared to western part. And in western part also, France is more developed as compared to Germany. So this development, and inside these countries also, the whole development of capitalism as the development which it has not produced but it has inherited from medievalism, from feudalism. This development of the world which capitalism has inherited from the past, that was unevenly developed. Capitalism, capitalism has retained this unevenness. At many places, it has tried to make it even, but this unevenness, still to this day, it is it is retained by capitalism. And with the rising social inequalities, with rising discriminations around the world, this inequality is being sharpened and deepened instead of
Sir, before you elaborate on this new dimension,
sir,
I'll interrupt you just in between.
sir,
First of all, I want to say that many teachers are sitting here, and I welcome all of them, particularly Dr. Ashutosh Angiras from SD College, Balakent. He's here and who is a scholar with Indian ethos, and he has given some comments. Like one is, he says that the way economists have designed and developed economies, what else humanity can expect except wars? And mind it, war is not only in terms of weapons and violence, it is also about industries. So we respect his opinion, sir. And further, he says that economists can't shy away from their front role responsibility. Of course, I agree that there are many types of economists, and some are, you can say, government economists, and most of the economists are, you can say, pro-industrialist, and they work on the behalf of the, you can say, industrialists, and who are, you can say, uh, profit mongers, and probably some warmongers also. Sir, I will raise a question to you that you have highlighted uh, that one thing is that rising capitalism can be somewhat useful, but a descending capitalism, a falling capitalism, creates many problems. And we have inherited, India has inherited this descending, falling capitalism, means when it is going down. So at that time, we have captured it. And it is retaining, you can say earlier, some of many of the bad things, not the good things. Secondly, you have highlighted that you have identified that why the wars are there, because there is a conflict between the expansion of the productive forces and narrow thinking of the nation states. So due to these conflicts, the wars take place. And then you have said that some kind of reconciliation has taken place, but that has not been sufficient to stop the war, but rather, you can say it has created more grounds for more wars. Now, the question is, you also said that the financial capitalism is on its way, and it is helping, you can say, to expand the capitalism, to take whole of the globe under its, you can say, umbrella. But what I feel, that nature of financial capitalism is also changing. So will that create new contradictions? And then you are saying that the capitalism, the nature of capitalism is in such a way that it leads to uneven development of the world. So what I feel that capital doesn't go where it should go, and it keeps on remaining concentrated. So wherever it is high, already concentrated, so it goes there. Means the countries which are already having more capital, so capital will go there. And even in a country also, the cities which are having more capital, so more capital will go there. Like in India, we say that Bombay is the uh, financial capital of India. So more capital will go to Bombay instead of, and in Maharashtra, there are many very poorest regions of India, and their capital is not going, but to one city is going. So it is going to rich cities, it is going to rich nations, then it is going to rich cities, and among industries also it goes to it goes to those industries which are already having high capital and high technology. So this is the nature of the capital that you can say the nation states, or you can say governments, or no power can control it, and it moves on its own. Uh, but it is there is some order in its moving also. This is what I feel, that it is sure that it it creates uneven development, and it will keep on creating uneven development. So do you want to say that this uneven development is also a reason of the wars? This is one question you can keep in mind. Further, I want to say that many students of Afghanistan are sitting here. Dr. Behram Ramesh is there, and uh, I can find uh, Rahimullah Safi is there, and I think more also may be there. Afghan students are there, and what the capitalism has done with Afghanistan. So, what kind of, you can say, miseries it has created for the people. So, I think you must speak on that. And again, I come to Dr. Ashutosh Angiras. He's saying that he's suggesting a solution also, that if we go for a simpler economy, there will be less wars. And if economy is agriculture based, there will be more peace. Uh, I think there is some fact in this, but is it possible to go for a simpler economy? Because economy is going to be more and more complex. Particularly, it happens with all kind of structures. This is the nature of the evolution of natural structures or economic structure or social structures. I think with time they become more and more complex. So I think you should speak on this also, sir. And then Dr. Behram Ramesh is saying that war enforces the economy to remain in low level equilibrium trap, where inbuilt shocks of war are more powerful than stimulates, and economy experiences backward process of the super multiplier. He is talking about a economic concept, that multiplier and accelerator concept. He says that when war comes, then multiplier works backwards, and then low level of the equilibrium comes. And Dr. Virendra Goyal is here from RKST College, Cathal. So I welcome you, sir. And many other teachers are here. Dr. Ashutosh is again commenting, is saying that I think talking about structural components of economics and political developments will not help humanity to change the course of the conflicts. We need understand and decode the source philosophy. Dr. Ashutosh is trying to search the solution in some philosophy. So I think you may comment on that, sir. And you can go on your own course also. So you were talking about the, you can say, you have chosen the uneven development of the world. Okay. So you can continue on that also, and you can choose these threads also. Please, sir.
I've jotted down whatever is being said here, and you have moderated that. So I jotted it down and I will answer that. I was talking about two contradictions. So I was talking about two contradictions, and in that context, I'd come to Marx, what Marx had underscored, the uneven development of capitalism. I was talking on that, and uneven development of capitalism means I would answer this question, the last question you put, the question of poverty and prosperity. So, capitalism in itself is a combination of two uh, opposites, a combination of two opposites: prosperity, extreme prosperity on one side, and extreme depravity on the other side. US and Afghanistan, or US and Yemen, they present the true picture of capitalism of our times. Many people say, you find many people saying that this they would give example of Sweden and Norway. They would give example uh, US, UK, France, and they would say that look, what capitalism has given to them. Capitalism has given a whole uh, uh, heaven to them. Capitalism has created heaven on earth in the form of these Scandinavian countries specifically. But when we come to capitalism as a whole, then we see that while capitalism creates extreme prosperity at one end, consequentially, in consequence to that, it creates extreme poverty, extreme depravity on the other hand. This is capitalism. This is a combination of these two opposites. There is a unity of two opposites inside capitalism. Capitalism means poverty, extreme poverty on the one hand, and extreme prosperity on the other. I was talking of this uneven development of the world as a whole and under capitalism specifically. So, this was the principle. The unevenness of capitalism was marked by Karl Marx long before in history, but Karl Marx had slipped one very important feature of capitalism alongside this unevenness of development. The other feature of this development of capitalism, specifically which capitalism has introduced. Unevenness is not introduced by capitalism. Unevenness is something that capitalism has inherited from the past. Another feature which capitalism has introduced, and which all students of economics must listen to very carefully, and they must conduct a whole research on that, that is the combined development of the world. Alongside its uneven development, the combined development, that I would explain you the correlation, interrelation between the two, and our entire world in which we are existing. If we want to understand it, we can understand it only through this lens of uneven and combined development of the world. What is this combined development? This combined development means that the world, though it is being developed under capitalism in an uneven way, this unevenness is a recognized phenomenon, but its development is combined also. This world is developing in a combined way also. How it is developing? It is developing in the way, take for example Afghanistan. Afghanistan is a country where even to this day barter system is there. Its economy is had been one of the most backward economies in the world. In such a country, not a peasant country but a tribal country dominated by tribes and their traditions, their economies, in such a country, the most advanced airport, Kabul airport, which is better than Heathrow airport, more advanced than, more modern than Heathrow airport, that has come. So, this is combined development of the world, where the archaic modes of production, they are suddenly welded with ultra modernity of the world, something that Europe has produced but could not consume. that is welded together to the archaic modes of production in these countries. The countries, which are the countries? The countries which are entering onto the stage of capitalism at a later stage in history, which are having virgin territories and virgin economies. That means a great scope to accommodate the new inventions, the new achievements, the new acquisitions of science and technology. Take, for example, India. India is having one of the best metros in the world. US is having no metro. The most advanced country of the world is having no metro trains. India is having best metros. Afghanistan is having best airport. So how this has come? This comes like this, that if you look at the development of gun in context of suppose Britain and Afghanistan, take these two countries. So Britain had gone from flintlock rifles to up to automatic weapons, but Afghanistan did not have to go through this entire painful path of 200 or 300 years. It leaped over. It leaped over suddenly. It got Kalashnikovs. It snatched it from Russian army. It got automatic weapons from US. So the conditions were created for Afghanistan by world capitalism, where Afghanistan got the most ultra modern weaponry suddenly. So the old archaic society of Afghanistan was armed with this ultra modern weaponry. So this combined development of the world, where the old structures of society, old structures of modes of production, they are combined suddenly with most modern equipments, most modern achievements of science and technology. If you go to far-flung villages of India today, where there is a farming of farming with this bullocks and simple simple instruments of farming, there in one or two families they have acquired BMWs, and these BMWs are being parked alongside their buffaloes. So this is peculiar development of backward countries. In advanced countries, they had achieved organic development, step by step development. In backward countries, the development is altogether different. In backward countries, it would be sudden, and consequently it would be devastating also. Huge chunks of masses, they would be thrown on fringes. They would be like in India, we are seeing that peasantry is being devastated. It is suffering that devastation under this combined development of capitalism. So capitalism has these two features. Capitalistic development has these two features, one underscored by Marx, the other underscored by Leon Trotsky. That had initially and originally slipped from Marx, and Marx could not have seen this, because in times of Marx this combined development of the world was not so clear, because economy was divided into national economies, and this integration on such a large and huge scale which finance capital has made possible, that was not there. But Karl Marx, in essence, by discovering this unevenness of the development of capitalism, Karl Marx has brought its main feature to the light, the uneven development. The other main feature, the combined development, was brought to the light by Leon Trotsky, and this discovery of this combined and uneven development, or I would say uneven and combined development, it was no less than a discovery by Darwin of uh, this organic development of species, and the laws of Newton, I would say that it is no less a discovery than that. It was a huge discovery because our world, if we want to understand our world, it can be easily understood, and it cannot be understood except through this lens of uneven and combined development. So this is peculiarity of development in backward countries. So I was talking of two contradictions. First contradiction, I had pointed out that it is globally integrating economic life and the old archaic national state which is trying to divide this global economy into national economy, and it is trying to carve out a sort of national economy out of this global economy. More and more economic forces are being slipped from the hands of nation states, and nation states are I would say nation states are failing to act as regulator of economy. They cannot regulate economy, and the glaring example you would see in 1991, India was running out of the resources, or more relevant example you can take of Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is becoming absolutely totally bankrupt today, and it is becoming bankrupt not because of the policies of Sri Lankan government. It would be a farce to say that Sri Lankan government is responsible for that. It is not the policies of Sri Lankan government, but the operations of capitalism on a wider scale, on global scale, that are making Sri Lanka bankrupt. And Sri Lanka is not the only country that would become bankrupt. It would trigger a whole chain, and impact would go up to China. So Sri Lanka is becoming totally bankrupt. Its economy is going to shatter within a week or two, and in this process we can understand that how there is an interplay of global forces, and how these economies which they are striving so hard to carve out of global economy, the national economies, why they are not sustainable, and why its role as a controller, a regulator over these national economies is subsiding, is diminishing. So in our times, this is one of the contradictions. This is one of the contradictions between globally integrating productive forces and the localized social relations represented by production relations, represented by nation state under the command of national bourgeoisie. And national bourgeoisie is the nationally organized gangs of capitalists. This is one of the contradictions. The other contradiction, I would say, a very important and equally important contradiction, that is between the socialized production and the private personalized consumption. The production is already socialized. The entire humanity, each of us, is taking part in that production. Today, the production is of the sort that even if a needle is being produced, its design is being made in Sweden, its raw material is coming from South Africa, its production is taking place in several phases over several countries. So entire humanity is taking part in production, and production has become socialized. Not only the economic forces have overstepped the narrow national confines, but in this process of overstepping, they have made entire production socialized. Production is socialized, but the distribution of the benefits, the consumption that is still private, that is still personalized. This is creating huge contradiction. Huge contradiction in the sense, the very contradiction from where we have started, that prosperity on the one hand and poverty on the one hand, this is product of this contradiction. Because of this uneven consumption, because of this discrimination in distribution, the benefit of this socialized production in which every person is taking part, that is not going. So we can say that distribution, the consumption is capitalist and the production is socialist. So production has already become socialist because everybody is taking part in that production. So the smaller part remains the distribution only, the distribution of the benefits. So these two contradictions, I'm repeating these two contradictions. First contradiction is between the globally integrating economic life and the nation state, the sectarian nation state and the expanding economic forces. This is the first contradiction. The second contradiction is socialized production and personalized consumption.
Excuse me, sir.
Sir.
Sir, I will just interrupt you.
Yes, sir.
Like you are saying that production has become
Yes, sir.
socialized, and distribution of the benefits is the privatized one in this capitalistic system. So it means one contradiction has been resolved because production has become socialized, so that has been resolved. So, but I will relate to another thing. You said that Scandinavian countries they have created heaven. Of course, many people say that capitalism is having the power, and that is why it can do the good things also, like it has done in the Scandinavian countries. But some researchers, some professors of economics, they have pointed out that in the Scandinavian countries, the property tax is very high, and there is a huge inheritance tax on the property. And I think in one of the countries it is up to 50%. It means if a person dies, then 50% of his wealth will go to the state. So this creates, you can say, so much money. This provides so much money to these nation state that it can take all of the, you can say, uh, providing health to the people, health services, education services, and giving sufficient money to the unemployed so that they keep on adding the skills and keep on searching the jobs, even if they are unemployed. So they don't mind that. Means some minimum income is provided to the unemployed also. So if health, education, and employment are taken care of by 50% of the wealth tax, it means half of the socialism has already come. 50, because this capitalism is about the private property, and when half of the private property goes to the state, so it means a good taxation system can resolve this conflict. So do you think that a good taxation system can resolve this conflict? I'll add another question also. uh, uh, that is related with okay. Okay, I'll take that later on. So please consider this, that whether it is possible. Yes, the another question is that can we say that only the weapon making companies they want wars, other companies do not want a war, or nation states are also interested in the wars, as you said that because they want to control the productive forces, and that is why they enter into wars. So what is more dominant? Are these weapon making companies or the nation states or the nature of the nation states? So means these things raise question on the theories, the theory of socialism, or you can say capitalism, Marxian theory. These two things. So one, I'll repeat. Okay, One is that whether a rational tax on the properties can help to lead towards socialism, and second, whether if we control only the war, these weapon making companies, can we control the wars? Means one of the biggest problem created by the capitalism is the war. So if that can be handled, so but of course there are many other problems, okay, like climate change and pollution and etc. and inequality. Okay, but is it possible? What do you think? What is your comment? From your good words, we want to.
I think, Professor John, you have nailed the critical issue in this debate. You said that you asked me whether a taxation system can result into socialism, and you pointed out that half of the socialism is achieved in these countries. There is no doubt in that. This is what our present day. Yes, sir.
Meanwhile, Uday Narayan has said that Scandinavian countries were never colonized and subjugated to theft and loot of resources the way third world countries were. Comparing the Scandinavian countries with the third world countries is like comparing apple to oranges. So please.
I think Mr. Uday is absolutely right that citing Scandinavian countries as a model of capitalism is absolutely incorrect. Capitalism as a whole must be talked of, and as I said, that prosperity at one end and poverty at other end, that is capitalism. So you put Norway or Sweden as models of capitalism. Why don't you talk of Africa? Why don't you talk of Asia, the large swathes of lands and population where most part of world population resides? That presents the picture of capitalism. So capitalism can create this sort of oasis among a whole desert of poverty and depravity. That is capitalism. That is the picture of capitalism, and these are oases among that big desert. He is absolutely right in that. I would say to your first question, you said that whether this is half socialism and whether a progressive taxation can make it. So, the idea of a progressive income tax, of a progressive taxation, and the opposition to indirect taxes.
Not income tax, it is property tax.
Property tax, yes. So, this sort of taxation, including income tax and property tax both. First thing is that we are talking about a taxation regime. So, taxation regime that is applicable to a particular country. A taxation regime is applicable to that country only, and therefore we would be thinking on a national basis, while the issue before us is not national, it is international. The economic forces, as I said, they have already in their onward march, they have overstepped the boundaries of nation state, and they are now integrated on a world scale. So whatever we propose in today's world, we have to propose in relation to that international economy. How international, the I would say the fanciful wish of national bourgeoisie to carve out a slice out of this international economy in the form of national economy. In fact, that is creating whole problem. That is the source of all problem. As you said that half socialism, yes, and what most of the leftists of today, they do not understand is that in a debate with P. Kievsky, Lenin had said, and that is part of his book Imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism. In that he says that imperialism is progressive, and it may come as a surprise to our leftists. Lenin says that imperialism is progressive as compared to old national capitalism, and he is absolutely right in that. He further elaborates it, and the elaboration is this, that imperialism for the first time, it creates a world economy. In place of different national economies, it integrates, it recognizes and integrates the productive forces into a world economy. It recognizes a world economy, and imperialism in itself is expression of that integration. This is imperialism. Ordinarily, leftists, they say that they oppose imperialism, and they say no, imperialism, we don't want imperialism, and in most of the cases they support national capitalism. They support their national bourgeoisie in its opposition to imperialism. Lenin doesn't say that. Lenin says imperialism is progressive to national capitalism. It is reactionary and regressive only to socialism. So that means that imperialism is the threshold to socialism. And socialism would not fall from the sky. Its base would be created by ripened capitalism, and ripened capitalism in the form of imperialism has already created its base. The huge corporations it has created, and it boasts of them. It says that there are huge benefits, and we are seeing that yes, there are benefits of combining the forces into the forces of market into huge corporations. There are big benefits of that. So what socialism has to do? Socialism has to combine all these corporations into a single big corporation. That's the task. That's the task left before socialism in our times. In Marx's time, in times of Marx, socialism was to do a lot of things. Socialism was to integrate the world, but now capitalism has already integrated the world. After 150 years of Marx, world is not standing where it was at that time. Rather, 200 years of Marx. World is not standing where it was standing in the time of Marx. It is not standing where it was standing in the times of Lenin or Trotsky. World has come forward, forward and forward. It's the onward march of productive forces goes on. The old social relations, they are becoming redundant. The grip of nation state is being loosened upon the national life, and finally and ultimately, these productive forces have already laid a very powerful, very forceful ground for advent of socialism and for collapse of capitalism. Capitalism is not the capitalism as it existed in the times of Marx or Engels or Lenin or Trotsky. It is capitalism of 21st century, and the capitalism of 21st century is more at the doorstep of socialism. It has created all necessary objective conditions for advent of socialism. Socialism has to do very little now. These huge corporations, and not only corporations, the alliances of corporations are there. So socialism has simply to take them over and integrate them into a single corporation. This is socialism. Integration of all corporations into a single world corporation. And already they are arguing, these corporates cannot say that we are doing something wrong, because what they have already done, we are taking it to a next stage. So far as capitalism is concerned, capitalism cannot do this. Why capitalism cannot do this? I told you that capitalism means, imperialism means a network of rival nation states. These nation states cannot combine their forces together either to create a world economic regime or to create something to combat whatever challenges the humanity. They could not combine their forces, they could not collaborate to fight even the virus of coronavirus, and they failed all humanity, the entire humanity. China is hiding its research from US. US is hiding its research from China. So they are divided, and they are divided to the extent leave aside the integration of the word, even the European Union, the union of most advanced capitalist countries, that could not work. Ultimately, Brexit is there. European Union cannot keep itself as a political or economic entity. So, on the capitalist basis, on the old capitalist basis, or even on an imperialist basis, capitalism cannot unite the world. The moment they would start uniting, the moment they would get disintegrated, disunited. So it is systemic failure, the terminal failure of capitalism, that it cannot unite the world. The world can only be united by the international working class under the banner of socialism, and that can only be united through destruction of these national states. Till these national states are overthrown, they are destroyed, there cannot be a reconciliation of economic forces, the economic life. The worst aspect, this has to be understood. This has to be understood, and this has to be understood in the backdrop of the fact that these economic forces that exist today, the immense growth of economic forces has taken place from the times of Karl Marx till today, and these economic forces as they exist today, they cannot be reconciled on a national state, whether it is capitalist, you call it capitalist or socialist or whatever. Why Soviet Union fell? Soviet Union fell only because under Stalin it attempted to reconcile these contradictions on a national scale instead of international scale. The slogan of socialism in one country was a bogus slogan. There can't be a national economy in our times. The productive forces have long back in history, they have overstepped all national frontiers. They have become so integrated on a world scale, and that is for the last century, more than a century, that you cannot bring them back and arrest them like a parrot inside a cage. Now you cannot put them inside a national cage, inside national frontiers, and whoever would attempt that, he would fail. You know, India had to open its economy in 1991 to the world. India's economy was going to shatter. Its foreign reserves had come to an end. Its policy of Nehruvian socialism, that had failed for that reason. And for the same reason, Soviet Union had failed under Stalin. So the debate that had taken place inside Soviet Union, where the left opposition led by Leon Trotsky had argued against Stalinists, against this concept of socialism in one country. Leon Trotsky said that no, you cannot make socialism in one country. Socialism would be made on the world as a whole, and socialism would be made its process of making socialism would start from advanced countries, from countries of the West, from US, from the countries where all objective conditions and material for making of socialism, for making of a socialist society and socialist economy already exist. In backward peasant Russia, those objective conditions did not exist. Those conditions even do not exist today in China. Those conditions do not exist in India. India, China or Russia cannot produce, they cannot make a socialist society. A socialist society could be made, and in that time where the whole world canvas was altogether different in Lenin's time, so socialism could have been made only, the process could have been started in advanced Europe, and that too not in segregation from each other, but taking the world as a whole, the world canvas as a whole. That is the thing. So in Soviet Union had fallen, and it had failed under Stalin only for the reason that Stalin and Stalinists tried to bring back, tried to arrest these productive forces and keep them within narrow confines of Soviet Union. Though Soviet Union was one-sixth of the world, it covered one-sixth territory of the world. But even then, history showed us that be it any territory, but you cannot keep economies surviving. No economy can survive within the confines of a nation state. Once economy has taken a global shape, once its forces have integrated on a global scale, now they cannot be put back to national confines. And this was the whole debate around Soviet Union, around the slogan of Stalin's slogan of socialism in one country, which he had borrowed from Bukharin. So this was this project of Stalin's project of socialism in one country was altogether a bogus project, a project that was not sustainable, and ultimately Soviet Union fell only for this reason, for this project. You cannot carve out a national economy, be it Soviet Union or US. No country can survive without help of others. All bourgeois countries are depending on each other. In today's world, this is the whole canvas, this is the integration of economic forces. So the very concept of reconciling the forces, whether through introduction of a tax regime, a progressive tax regime, or through any way whatsoever, you cannot get an economy, a progressive economy, on a national basis, and if it is a regressive economy, then sooner or later it would fall. So this is the main lesson and a main thrust of our investigation into the fall of Soviet Union and all those countries that in the past have made an attempt modulated or modeled on the model of Soviet Union under Stalin. Initially, Lenin and Trotsky had never thought of this. They were totally opposed to this idea of socialism in one country, the right-wing idea, the totally rightist idea. But later on, Stalin had introduced it, and the consequences of introduction of this socialism in one country were devastating. No socialism can be made in one country when even capitalism cannot survive in a single country, cut off from the world, hermetically sealed off from rest of the world. No country can survive, no economy can survive if there can't be a capitalist economy in sealed off condition, in isolation. How there can a socialist revolution survive on that land? So this was the whole debate. So we were discussing how these two contradictions between globally integrating economic life and the nation state on the one hand, and socialized production and the private consumption on the other, they are in our times, they are defining the whole economic life of the world and the system of imperialism. And I have told you, dear friends, you must note it down, that imperialism, when we talk of imperialism, we talk of its inherent character as revolutionary or reactionary, we must talk in specific context. In context of socialism, imperialism is definitely reactionary, but in context of old national capitalism, imperialism is 100 times revolutionary. So in abstraction, in abstract terms, you cannot talk of imperialism as reactionary. So economic life has once it has stepped out and it has come out of the presence of nation state, it cannot be pushed back into the uh, into those precincts, those sectarian precincts of nation state, and it has to march forward. It has to march forward towards socialism. It cannot go back to national economy, whether you call it socialism or you call it capitalism as you wish to. So there can be no national socialism. This national socialism, based on the idea of socialism in one country, is
Sir,
equally
we are
bogus.
left with little time.
Yes, sir.
So I'll quickly take some of the comments. First
Sir.
of all, I want to say that everybody is enjoying your talk very much, and this is evident from their various comments given in the comment box. And many have taken your side. Like Augustus says that Marx is supposed to oppose the imperialism and national capitalism. We have already witnessed the devastation that imperialism has brought in the last century. Of course, uh, uh, we agree that the true Marxists, they will definitely oppose the national capitalism. And then Meenu Rani, she's saying that this is a very important lecture. And Dr. Ashutosh again, he is saying that he's in fact requesting us that will you make a discontinuement on the wars forced by communists. Of course, Dr. Ashutosh, we agree that though the wars created by the communists, of course, they were not desired, and they many of them were the pseudo communists. They were, you can say, they were not thinking about of the revolution in the whole of the world, and they were not planning for this. Rather, they were engaged in the small wars and creating that. Of course, we will expect a comment from Advocate Rajesh also about this. Means you want us to comment that will you make a comment on the communist wars and capitalist wars? Of course, there should be a comment. And Augustus is saying that imperialism is in itself manifestation of valorization crisis and national bourgeois in many parts of the world. And world has been acting as the client bourgeois for the imperialist. So I think you will make a comment on this also that many parts of the world has been acting as a client bourgeoisie for the imperialist. And of course, I want to say that students are enjoying it very much. The student and teachers from various colleges, they are enjoying it. Gurdeep Mathur is there, Dr. Pooja Bhardwaj is there, Dr. Suraj Walia is there, and many other teachers from many colleges. They have liked your talk, but you should comment on this also, sir, and that will be, I think, then we will be ending the lecture. What Ashutosh is saying that will you make a comment on the communist wars and capitalist wars?
So, in the first instance, what are wars? Wars are the continuity of the rivalry, the clash between corporates that remains at one point, that remains non-violent, that remains within the confines of markets, and at other points it goes beyond the markets and is snowballed into full-fledged wars. This clash between the corporates, this clash among the corporates in our times, among the TNCs, MNCs, the trusts, the big alliances of corporates, and the nation states in which through which they are protected, in which they are rooted. So this clash, it is this clash that takes form of a war, and this clash by other means it goes into war. It's the times we live in, which are times of war, and this period of peaceful clash, peaceful contradictions among these corporates, these trusts is already over. They are going, looking for, searching for new territories, new areas, new markets. So this is the age of wars, wars outside the borders, and its manifestation Its domestic manifestation is fascism. Fascism is uh, is the manifestation of capitalism in crisis. When capitalism is in crisis, when profit rates are falling and they cannot be arrested through normal market competition, then the big powers, they go in war and they settle their uh, issues that could not be settled in the past inside the framework of market through peaceful competition. Now they strive to settle it through a policy of blood and iron. And then they go for wars among nation states. Nation states organize them into combines, into collaborations, into huge war alliances. They are divided into camp in our times, at least 2 or 3 camps we can talk of. One is led by US and NATO, the other by Russia, and we can talk of a third camp also led by China. So they are already organized and the war is being prepared. It is ready, it is coming. And I would like to answer that question also, that whether these arm producers and these companies which are dealing in arms, or the corporates in general, whether they want war or not. So my answer is that obviously they do not want war. Nobody wants war. They are enjoying a heaven on the earth. Why they would want war? So they don't want war, but war wants them. War is coming, war is emanating, it is emerging not out of the will of individual capitalists or the gangs of capitalists or the corporates or the alliances of corporates. War is coming out of it is being churned out of the operations of capitalism, the working of capitalism, its orientation and its search for more and more profits, that is resulting into wars. And wars are the product not of the brains of individual capitalists or individual producers of arms or corporates that are engaged in arms production. It is not, but they are engaged in arms production because war is coming. War is not coming because they are engaged in production, but they are engaged in production seeing the war coming. Every nation state is sure that war is coming. Whatever they may, they are keeping their subjects, the citizens, in delusion, but they know themselves. All heads of the states, all experts in economics, in politics, in world politics, they know that war is coming, and war is sure shot. It can be, war can be delayed, it can be postponed, and we must also contribute in that. The biggest interest in postponing the war is of proletariat. Proletariat, the working class, must make all efforts to postpone this war. Why it must make effort to postpone the war when war cannot be finished and it is certain that war will come? Why it must postpone the war? It must postpone the war because the same processes that are giving rise to the same capitalist crisis, that is giving rise to wars, that is giving rise to revolution also. Revolution is in itself, it is the product of this capitalist crisis. You see, the First World War has given birth to October Revolution. The Second World War has also given impetus to so many revolutions, so many revolutionary processes which though failed, proletariat could not take power like in October Revolution, but they gave impetus to revolutionary process also. So revolution is also brewing up. So till through revolution the international working class seizes, it snatches power from the hands of these gangs of capitalists who want to destroy and who are at destroying the world through these wars, through these nuclear heads, through chemical warfare, through biological warfare. They want to destroy the world, and they are being forced to, more than what they are being forced by operations of capitalist market to engage in a war with each other. So, till the power is snatched out of their hand, till that point of time, this war should be postponed. So, if it can be postponed even for a day, for a week, for a month, or a year, so we must try for that. And simultaneously, we must try, we must make all efforts, all out efforts to bring socialist revolution nearer and nearer. So, this two pronged effort must be made by not only by working class but by uh, everybody who understands this, the youth, the student, the women, and all sections of the population. They must strive for this two pronged uh, effort must be made, the effort to bring socialist revolution nearer and nearer and sooner than later, and to postpone the war till the power of capitalists is overthrown, till the boundaries of these nation states are smashed, all these nation states are finished, and as Soviet Union has done in October 1917 by on destruction of the frontiers of these nation states, a socialist union of all people on the planet must be made. So, only on this global scale, after international working class takes power and it smashes all nation states, only then the main contradiction of our time, the contradiction between socialized production and individual consumption, and the contradiction between expending uh, these social forces, you say productive forces, and the ossified nation state can be addressed and can be reconciled only through destruction of these nation states. All these, or in the alternative, these nation states would destroy the world. Either the world would destroy these nation states and would achieve its unity, its integrity as a humanity, or these nation states through a war, through upcoming war, a devastating war, they would destroy entire world. They are having sufficient armament for that, sufficient nukes for that. So, it would be completely destroyed in that. So, Professor uh, Chauhan Saab, you want to say something?
Sir, I want to thank you from my
For calling me here,
uh,
for inviting me.
and express a heartfelt thank on my behalf and on the behalf of our students. So
Thank
you
you very
have
much, sir.
done
Thank you.
wonderful job. You have demarcated the all the contradictions of the capitalism, this capitalistic society, this market mechanism, this kind you can say imperialism. So everything you have, you can say, detailed out, and then you have shown the way also that what can be done. There is one bright student, Gautam, who is asking again and again that what should be done. I think he has got a little bit hint, but in detail it can be discussed later on in the
Yes.
classroom. And Dr. Ashutosh Angiras is again suggesting very important things, and I think full-fledged workshops are required for that. He's saying that economists are having three jobs at their hands, that they have to resolve the primary contradictions, the moving contradictions, and these dangerous contradictions which are leading to war. And so that we should give a new theory, idea, or model. So this is what he is saying. So we are thankful to Dr. Ashutosh that he has enriched this discussion by his comments, and of course I am thankful to all those who have participated here and who have commented and who have taken so much interest. And of course I am thankful to Advocate Rajesh Tyagi that you have taken so much trouble and you have deliberated here, and our students have really benefited with this, and I think they will keep on discussing about your talks, about your lecture. um, I'll request some of the students that download this lecture and edit it, and so that it can become a smarter one. and then upload it again, and so that it can be penned down. I'll request that it should be every idea should be written down, and later on a discussion paper should be made on this, and so that in future also discussions can be you can say continued in this line, because these are something new things that what you are saying to the students of economics, that nation states will be destroyed. Either the world will destroy the nation states, or nation states will destroy the world. So, of course, the nation states should be destroyed. Of course, this is what you are suggesting, and of course, through a socialistic revolution, and we have to postpone the war. This is very important, that we have to keep it away, so that war doesn't, you can say, destroy whatever we have achieved till now, and till the proletariat, till the working class, it gains power and it becomes powerful, the war should be postponed. And of course, you have given a great idea that socialism in one country is not possible. Okay. And I think the answer of the question by Dr. Ashutosh, when he was saying that capitalistic wars and communist wars, that has been answered. Means the communist countries who are invading the other countries to capture their market. So they are not communists. They are capitalists. When they are capturing the other country to make its colony or to exploit its resources, so they are not thinking about the
And
proletariat. They are not
no
thinking
country
about the
can be
labor
communist.
class.
There can't be a communist country.
Yeah,
This concept is
can't be
debased.
communist country. Oh, yes, that is what you have. You can say propose. So this is the basic. You can say premise, or you can say basic thesis, that socialism in one country is not possible. Like capitalism is on whole of the globe, socialism will also be coming on whole of the globe, or major part of the globe, and it will emanate from the more developed nations. This is what you have proposed. So we welcome you, sir. We welcome your thoughts, and I think students will take interest in this kind of heterodox thinking, what I'd say. So they are studying the mainstream economics, but this kind of heterodox thinking is very important for them. And in earlier lecture also, there was another lecture on the economic thoughts, on the classification of economic thoughts, and many students were asking that what is heterodox economics. So I think today they have got the taste that what is the heterodox, what can be a heterodox economy. A socialist economy can be a heterodox economics. Okay. So I again thank you, sir. Every student is thanking you, and so many thanks are coming. So it's really appreciated, really applauded. So I thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. You have given me that great opportunity to address, and thanks for Professor Chauhan specifically who has given me this opportunity. Thank you very much, friends. Indebted.